Okay, hello everyone, my name is Marco and let's get reading. So today I want to do a 24 books I want to read in 2026. I was like 24 books makes a perfect bingo board, and what if I read 2 books every month and tried to get the TBR Blackout board completely wiped out by the end of the year. So here are the 24 books on that bingo board that I'm going to read in 2026. I plan on doing a reading vlog where I read 2 of them each month. And I just want to talk about the books for a second because I feel like these are some of my oldest books on my physical TBR and I need to get them done. So this is TBR Blackout. Let's just talk about the books I'm going to read. So the first book on my TBR Blackout TBR is It's Not All Downhill From Here. I got this at a thrift store and I heard about it before, and the reason I picked it up is because it seems to be about a older group of characters, and I've always been interested in reading older characters. So this is part of the reason why I picked it up. All I know is that's about a bunch of old people doing old people stuff, and that's literally everything I know. I believe it's her 68th birthday, and it's her like being like, hey, it's not all downhill from here. Aging isn't that bad. I strongly believe in, so I'm excited to read this as well. And then we have Homegoing, which is a book I've had on my TBR for a while now. I read another book by this author called Transcendent Kingdom, and I really enjoyed that. So I was like, I might as well pick this up. I've heard really amazing things about this book. What I know about it is that it's a generational story following this family through the generations. So apparently it's over the course of 300 years, and it also takes place in Ghana. And it seems to be about these 2 half-sisters and the way their lives changes over time. I'm really curious to see this one. I did really enjoy her other book, Transcendent Kingdom, so I'm really excited to read this as well. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. And then we have one of the oldest books on my physical TBR, Anyone by Charles Soule. I read another book by this author called The Oracle, I believe. I still own it. I think it's called The Oracle or something like that. I really enjoyed that book and I want to continue reading from this author, so I picked up this book and the author's other book, but I still have not read either of them, and they've been on my physical TBR for a while now. This one has been on my physical TBR for like over 4 years or something. It's been on there for a while, so I really need to get to it. I started listening to this on audiobook, but then I stopped listening to it because I just couldn't get into audiobooks. For some reason, I cannot read audiobooks recently, y'all. I just don't feel like I can understand audiobooks as well as I used to. Not to say that they don't count as real reading. I believe they count as real reading. Just recently, audiobooks have not been working for me as much as they used to, which is very sad because I really do enjoy audiobooks, and it's sad that I can't enjoy them as well as I used to now. I believe this has something to do with gene splicing. Like, it's about this character who ends up getting like mutated or something like that. That's pretty much all I know about it. It's a pretty chunky book. Oh yeah, and this is my adult section currently. I'm talking about adult books first, and then I'm going to talk about nonfiction, then young adult, then middle grade. I really enjoyed the author's first book, which was a bit science fiction-y fantasy, and they also write comic books, which I think is really interesting. But this is their second novel, so I really do want to read this. And then we have a sci-fi book called Temper by Nikki Drayden. I tried reading this author's other book, Escaping Exodus, like a few months ago, and I never finished it. They wrote another book that I read and I really enjoyed. That was like a multi-POV story that was also sci-fi-ish and fantasy-ish that I really enjoyed. And so I want to read one of their books this year at least. All I know is that this is about a sci-fi story. Apparently it's about 2 brothers. I think it might be more fantasy-ish. It says 2 brothers, 7 vices, 1 demonic possession. Can this relationship survive? This book also has mixed reviews on like Goodreads and Storygraph, so I'm not sure I'm gonna feel about it. Hopefully I like it because I did like the author's past book. But yeah, I'm gonna read this. Hopefully I enjoy it. And then we have Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This is a adult contemporary novel following this person who is a nanny, and she basically gets accused of kidnapping a baby even though she's just being a nanny, and the situation gets recorded on social media and it goes viral, and I believe like it's just about like fake allyship and stuff like that. I've heard really great things about this book. I never got to it when it was popular on booktube, but I do want to get to it now. It seems like it's going to be a really important novel, and it's basically about how the main character is being a nanny for a toddler and someone accuses her of kidnapping the child, and it seems like it's gonna be like a really big thing during the novel. I've heard good things about this. I've also heard not so great things about this. I'll just have to wait and see until I read it. And then I have Exit West. I've heard mixed things about this book. I've heard mostly good things, but I've also heard mixed things. I don't know what this is about actually. It's just a really old book that's been on my physical TBR. I'm pretty sure this might be fantasy, but then while I'm reading it, it seems like it's gonna be contemporary also. So apparently it's about these doors that can whisk people away to other places. The 2 characters are currently dealing with the Civil War where they live, and there seems to be unrest roiling in the city. So yeah, it does seem like it's going to actually be fantasy. And then we have Poster Girl by Veronica Roth. I read Veronica Roth's Chosen Ones, which I really enjoyed. This book seems to be about this girl. They seem to be the poster girl of a certain government identity, and now that the government is like taken down, she's seen as like an enemy to the people because she was a poster girl for the government. I mostly picked this up because I did really enjoy Veronica Roth's Chosen Ones, and she's basically been a prisoner because she was a poster girl, and this book seems like it's about her trying to gain her freedom from being imprisoned. I also did really enjoy her book Chosen Ones, so I really want to read this as well. And then we also have the Thursday Murder Club. I own like 4 books in this series and I haven't read a single one. What am I doing? What am I doing? This is basically a cozy mystery. All I know is that it's about this character who joins a club about murders, like true crime murders. And when someone is found dead, the Thursday Murder Club basically has to figure out who the murderer is and why the person was murdered. I really do enjoy cozy mystery. Hopefully I enjoy this one as well. We'll just have to wait and see until I read it. And then we also have Nnedi Okorafor's Who Fears Death in this tiny mass market paperback. I read a few books by Nnedi Okorafor and I've really loved them. I've pretty much loved every book Nnedi Okorafor has come out with. I need to read more of these authors' books so that way I can tell they're my favorite author, because I absolutely love pretty much every book they've come out with and I want to read more of them. This seems to be a fantasy sci-fi and I don't know what's about. Basically, it takes place in post-apocalyptic Africa. All I know is that it's by Nnedi Okorafor, and that's enough for me to be like, I need to read it. I also own a bunch of other Nnedi Okorafor books I need to read. There's also a prequel to this book that I need to read after I finish this one. I just have to get to all of these Nnedi Okorafor books, and hopefully I can start with this one, because this has been the longest one on my TBR. We'll have to get to it as well. And then we have 5 Carat Soul by James McBride. This is a short story collection by the author. I read another book by this author called Deacon King Kong, which I really loved. So I was planning to get to this author as well later on. I plan on getting to this author. I really enjoyed their book Deacon King Kong, so hopefully I enjoy their short story collection as well. And then the last book in the adult section that I need to read is The Bandit Queens by Purani Shroff. All I know is that this follows this woman who is accused of murdering her husband, and she's like, sure, why don't I let people think that I murdered my husband, because that way they'll leave me alone. When one day someone comes to her asking her for help to murder her husband, so it's about her trying to help this person murder her husband, I believe. Sounds like a really interesting book, and I love the fact that the main character is like, sure, why don't I let people think I murdered my husband, because that way they'll leave me alone. Like, I think that's very iconic. I really love that for her. So, you know, I'm excited to read this. I've heard really amazing things about this author, and it's been on my radar for a while, so I'm really excited to actually get around to reading it this year. I'm really excited for this book, so hopefully I enjoy it. Okay, and next we're going to talk about the 3 nonfiction books I want to read in 2026. Let's go ahead and get started with those. So the first nonfiction book I want to talk about is How to Protect Bookstores and Why. This one is about like protecting indie bookstores and stuff like that. Seems pretty self-explanatory. Also, the text is pretty small, which is why I haven't read it yet, because I've been pushing it back because of the text and font size. But it seems like it's gonna be an easy read actually, so I don't know why I've been pushing it off so much. And then we have The Way Through the Woods by Long Lit Woon. This seems to be about this author who is dealing with grief and how like foraging and like plant life changed her ways. Yeah, that's basically what it seems to be, like a memoir about plant life and how plant life changed her life. And I saw this at my bookstore used for a pretty good price, and I was like, I kind of want to read it, so I bought it. I want to read more books about plant life. I find plant life to be really fun, very interesting. There have been already a few books about plant life on my physical TBR. I want to read this as well. And then the last nonfiction book I want to read in 2026 is Eat, Shoots, and Leaves. This is a nonfiction book about grammar and like writing. I'm not the best with grammar, so when I saw this, I was like, I kind of want to read it. That's pretty much all I know about it. It seems to be about like grammar correction, like learning about grammar. I'm going to read this as well. Okay, next we're going to talk about the 3 young adult books I want to read in 2026. Why did I say 2025? I thought 2024, and then I went, no, 2025, and then I'm like, no, 2026. The first book I want to read that's in the young adult section is Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. I have so many books by Nnedi Okorafor that I need to read, and this is another one of the older books on my TBR that I need to read, because I have really enjoyed Nnedi Okorafor's other books. This seems to be a young adult fantasy about witches, which I always enjoy witchy books, so I'm probably going to enjoy this as well. And this also seems to take place in Nigeria, and it's about magic. It just seems like a fun read, so I am planning on reading this. It also is kind of chunky, and the next 2 books are also kind of chunky. I also own the second book in the series, and I need to read this because I've owned the second book for forever, so I need to finish this series, get to the series by 2026. And then I also have Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. I own a couple books by Tiffany D. Jackson. I used to really enjoy this author back when I was in high school, so I've always wanted to keep up with this author's books, but after I got out of high school, I kind of stopped reading YA. I don't feel shame in reading YA as an adult, and this seems like an author that I would still read as an adult. I just haven't gotten around to it because, again, I just don't read YA as much anymore. And this book follows a character who seems to be in the R&B music industry when someone gets murdered. I also have another book by the author called Let Me Hear a Rhyme, which is also also about a death, so I'm curious to see how these two connect. And then the last book in the YA section that I need to get to is edited by Neil Shusterman, called Gleanings. This is a sequel to the Arc of a Scythe series by Neil Shusterman, and this is a sequel anthology. A bunch of others write stories that take place in the same universe. This came out a long while after the Arc of the Scythe series ended. I'm curious to see what these authors do with the series, so I do want to read it. I do love me a good anthology. I need to read more anthologies. Okay, next let's talk about the middle grade I need to read in 2026. So the first two books in my middle grade TBR for 2026 is the second and third book in the Wings of Fire series, The Lost Heir and The Hidden Kingdom. I read the first book of the Wings of Fire like sometime this year or last year, and I was like, okay, I need to get to the series, and I never got to the series. So I have 2 books on my 2026 TBR because that way I'll actually get to them. I was thinking of putting 4 books on the 2026 TBR, but I was like, no, that's too many. I know I'll get to them after I read these 2. If not, I'll just add them to the 2027 TBR. This follows these dragons. They're prophesized to end this war, and it's about them escaping from their home and trying to end this war. It's a 15 book long series, so, you know, I'm planning on getting to it. I'll get through my way through it slowly but surely. And then another older book on that TBR is Front Desk by Kelly Yang. I believe this follows this character who lives in a motel. Yeah, it's about her living in a motel, hiding the fact that her parents are immigrants, stuff like that. It seems to be a contemporary novel about this girl living in a motel. I believe this is also a pretty long book series, but I think I'm only gonna read the first one. I already have so many book series I need to get to. I don't think I can add another one. And another book that I've had on my physical TBR for a while is Gracefully Grayson. I believe this comes out as a kid who is a trans girl. And it's gonna be an important book about this character realizing that they're trans. So yeah. And then another book that I want to read by 2026 is Ophi's Ghost. This is a book I bought a while ago. It follows this character who is haunted by ghosts, and that's literally all I know about it. This is one that's also my TBR, so I do want to get to it. And then the second to last book is No Fixed Address. This follows a character who is homeless, and it's about them dealing with homelessness. I tried listening to the audiobook of this, but I did not get to it, so I do want to read the physical version because I'll probably find it easier to read if it's physical. And then the last book I want to read is Escaping from Aleppo. This follows a character who is dealing with a war and trying to escape a war. Seems to be about like a civil war. Yeah, civil war. And it's about them escaping from the civil war. So, you know, that's also something I want to read. But yeah, that's literally everything that's on there that I want to read in 2026. I'll put up the picture of the TBR Blackout board. I plan on reading 2 books every month from this Blackout board. And I plan on doing a reading vlog every time I do the Blackout board TBR thing. Anyways, that's everything for now. So goodbye.